to Gwen so we can get started.
You. Selena asked me to turn on my video for a quick wave. Hi, I'm Gwen, and I'm going to cancel that, and then we're going to start on fixed assets.
Awesome. Thank you, Gwen.
All right. Today we're going to cover the life cycle of the fixed asset. We're going to talk about the acquisition, the reconciliation, which is outlined here. This is the Acumatica step in here. Then there's the normal usage and maintenance, depreciation, and disposal. So I have some, for those of you who are like me, who are accountants, I have some accounting journal entries below that we might come back to if you have a question about them. So I'm going to show you, this is a sales demo, and I'm going to show you the fixed asset workspace or module that we call these. And this is going to look very similar to what you've seen in the other workspaces, right? You have transactions, you have profiles, that's where our fixed asset live. You have processes, and this is what we're going to focus in on today. And then when we have inquiries, and that's just normal and your reporting. And then your preferences. I'm going to start a little bit with explaining a little bit about how the acquisition process works. In Acumatica, you would actually put in a payable and in a bill and go ahead and do that. You can see here that I have Ford, Gwen's Ford dealership, which we're going to be using today. I put in a bill associated with that to pay Gwen's Ford company, and I put that to a clearing account. That's how fixed assets are set up in Acumatica. They go to a clearing account, and then within the fixed asset world, we convert those purchases to assets. So I'm going to go through preferences right now and explain a little more. So your accrual account or your clearing account is denoted here. That's a special account only used for fixed assets clearing. And then proceeds. These will be used when we sell our fixed asset, if that's how we dispose of it. And then the numbering sequence. Typically what I find is that our customers like to have an intelligent numbering system for their fixed assets. So for instance, like vehicles, they might start with CAR for car, and then a numbering sequence. And then sometimes they just want to have them 1 through 100, that kind of thing. And this is just basically the same thing that you would see on any other preferences screen. The postings, you'll see this over here when we talk about depreciation, and that leads us into the next one of these. It's called books. You have one posting book, one book that will hit your GL, and then you can have as many non-posting books as you want. I have usually, I've seen that our customers want to have at least one tax book. And some people want to have a state, a federal, and another kind of calculating tax book. So I have seen up to 4 tax books used. And these books are non-posting. They're only going to show you the depreciation. You're going to calculate the depreciation, but it won't actually hit your ledger. Only the posting book does that. So there are already set up for you some depreciation methods and depreciation table methods. So let's look at the depreciation methods. These are your standard ones that you see for GAAP, for generally accepted accounting principles. And you'll see that you have double declining, 50 and 150, 175. Most of our clients we see coming from straight line in going to straight line in our things, but that's not necessarily what you have to do. So that's the methods. The table methods are, you can see they look very much like IRS because that's where they come from. This is actually pre-set up for you by Acumatica. But you can see here the makers, and it tells you the averaging convention, the average useful life, in the classes, so forth. So those are already set up for you, so you don't have to worry about us having to set them up or anything like that. They come straight from Acumatica themselves. There's typically, I will say that we work down the list. The fixed asset classes, just like you had classes and payables and receivables for vendors or customers, you have asset classes. And these asset classes will tell you exactly kind of what the defaults are going to be. Okay. So I'm going to use vehicles today because I'm just kind of that Ford kind of girl. And it's going to tell me what asset type it is. And this is just a preset of what they are. And then the useful life is going to be 4 years. Excuse me. And then the depreciation is going to be posting class. If I had a tax class on this, it would also do the tax, but we're just doing posting right now. And then it's going to tell me what accounts to use and sub accounts. So this one is going to go straight into vehicles when we move it. And that's going to be that asset class there, or asset account there. And you can make this as detailed as you want. So for instance, this client in my test wanted to have accumulated depreciation by vehicles so they could match up the vehicles to the accumulated depreciation. And so that's what we did here. And depreciation expense, we could have done the same thing, but usually people are just wanting to know that depreciation expense, not in total. So here we have the gain and losses, and that'll come into play when we dispose of the asset. So the disposal methods, these are what you want to see. And so we're going to assume that we have sold or traded in our asset today, but you can make these whatever you're most comfortable with or what happens. If you don't donate, then we don't have to put that one in. And we can always add to those. So that's kind of the preferences. Now I'm going to go to the processes. And we're going to actually work down this list. It's pretty much in order. And most of the processes are like that. If you're looking at a workspace, usually you work down the list. So first of all, we're going to convert the purchases to assets. And I am going to tell you a trick because I get asked this a lot. And that is always click the button that says transactions marked for reconciliation, because if you click them, they will disappear before you're ready to work with them. So always click that button. Safety tip number 1. So today I put in this $50,000, and that was the Ford dealer that I showed you in payables that we had the bill for. I'm going to click, I want to do something with it, and I want to reconcile it. And if you notice, it has an open quantity of 1 and an open amount of 50. I'm going to create a new asset with it. And this system, I have it set up to auto number. This is what I was talking about. You don't have to use the auto numbering. You can actually put in car 175 or whatever you want to do. The asset class, we're going to pick vehicles. And department, I said this was for sales. And if it's a component of another asset, you would use this account. And if it's also another component of another asset, you would use this by unchecking this create new. It moved the selected quantity from open to 1 and from open amount to selected amount for 50,000. And it says that this is when we actually received it. That was when I did the payable in place in service. You can change this date, but typically it's the same date that you received it. If you are using this as a construction process, if you have multiples, you might have paid for freight on a different day than you paid for this. You can always place it in service when you've got the asset here. And it's going to, you can put some other things in here like custodian, but we're just going to do that. So all you have to do from this point is click process. It might be a little while, just because it's on the. If you feel like singing the Jeopardy song, you can. Okay, we have a process. So we're going to go look at that asset that we just created. And we're going to go under profiles. This is exactly where you would find customers in your receivables or your vendors in your payables. This is the fixed assets. And you can see here that we have 22, and we can see that we created that one. And I want to put in a description. I'm going to save that. It brought in the depreciation useful life of 4 years. You can always override this. It has 0 salvage value. At this point, I can put in salvage value of 1,000 and save that. And it brings it in as active. And it put it in the Department of Sales because that's where I told it to be. In this system, I have it set up so that my asset number is the same as my tag number. If that's not the case in your site, then we can set your tags up to be that, whatever your tag numbers are. It brought in the fixed asset account for you and the accumulated depreciation. Again, those were the specifics, the vehicle accumulated depreciation and the vehicle's fixed asset. It also brought in everything that was required. So your tip for today, second number tip, is that when you see an asterisk on any screen in Acumatica, it means it's required. If it's black, that means it already has something in that field. And this one came over from the classes, just like we used the classes in other areas. So we wanted to look also at the balance tab. This is the posting book. It was picked as straight line, and the posting book is going to tell you that it's active and going to the ledger. We put it in depreciation of that one, and it's going to depreciate from 12/23 to 11/27. Original cost in the salvage value. It brought in from that first page. Front page there. So let's look at the transactions. This is the transaction that it did to move it from crediting the fixed asset clearing account to moving it to the debit side or the cost side of the vehicles. And it just does a clearing account down here to itself. Don't know why. That's how it works. And then let's go back to this depreciation tab. This depreciation tab you can look at for any one of your assets that you have. It will let you calculate the depreciation so you see kind of like what's happening, what's going to happen until then. So you see how it's that a number. You'll see that it is pretty much the same throughout. And it's should be, if you walk back through it, it should be 49 divided by 36. And that should give you your total there. Again, this is just calculating it to show you exactly kind of where you're at or where you will be at. It's not depreciated yet. So let's go see and say we want to calculate, again, going down the processes one by one, calculate depreciation. So we can go back and we're going to go to book, posting book. And we've got to depreciate this one board that we just put in. And I can calculate only, which is what I just showed you on the asset itself, or I can depreciate. Again, this is a process, so you can do all of them at the same time. The only reason I'm not doing them all at the same time is because my system, my local, does show is a little slow. So I just want to depreciate that one to show you. But you can do it by class and by parent classes. See how fast that went? So then let's go look at that asset one more time. Again, it's 22, the one we created. And we're going to go to the depreciation. And you can now see that the calculated, which is what we calculated before, now has a depreciation on it. And we only did it for 1 month. So that's why it only did that one. But you could depreciate multiple periods at the same time. Okay. So that's those. I'm just going to explain transfer and split assets today. Transfer asset is if, for instance, I put this under sales. Let's say that the department is that we want to move it from sales to the president now has an F-150, and we want to move it to admin. That's what we would do with transfer of assets. That's just to make your physical inventory of your fixed assets easier to do. So it's actually in the department that uses it. The department will get charged the depreciation. Everything like that will go forward, going forward. Split assets is a little unusual, but it's like this computer asset right here. This has 5 computers on it, and it's fully depreciated. But if I wanted to sell that, sell one of those computers, I could split that off in another asset, split one of those out for that amount of money, and then dispose of it through a sale. You could also use it if you had those 5 assets and one of them needed to be transferred from accounting to sales, then you would do it that way. You would split the assets. So then now 4 assets would be under accounting and 1 asset would now be under that sales. All right, so we are moving along and we're going to say that we disposed of the F-150. It was a bad investment and we don't want to sell that. Okay, so I just found that I'm under dispose assets. I selected that one and then I need to do that. So we're going to say that we sold it and we sold it for $20,000. Okay. This would be normally already set up for you. And reason is the clock of, and then we're going to go ahead and process that. My computer is lying to me because it's going so fast. And now you can see down here that it was disposed of. It created, every time we did this, it created transactions that were posted to your general ledger. So the disposal will calculate how much money and gain and loss on the asset that you have. And so that's really the life cycle of an asset. Pretty straightforward. You can go down the list. And I am going to turn it back to Selena.
We do have a few questions. We can get those answered. The first one is, are you able to link a liability to a fixed asset? For example, if we have a note payable on a fixed asset.
Yes. You would do a different transaction. And it would involve the general ledger, but it would bring into that clearing account, and then we would attach it through the convert purchases to assets.
And then how does closing a financial period work if we add on fixed assets to our Acumatica?
Okay. Let me go ahead and share again so that you can see. All right. So just like any subledger, payables, receivables, inventory, you're going to want to tie out your fixed asset balances by GL, just like you do your receivables or your payables before you close the account. And so you would go to close financial period once you've done that. And it's old. So it's going to tell you, it's going to come up here and say, do you have any release documents? Have you not run depreciation for any? And so it's going to say, no, there's no unreleased documents. And there's no fixed assets that haven't been depreciated for this period. So you can go ahead and just process close that one. And then if you go to finance, and we look at the master calendar for 20, you can see that these have been closed. And once these are closed, then you can go ahead and close those in your finance. So, Selena, is there another one?
Yes. So then how many assets work in Acumatica? So how many do customers usually have?
Okay, so typically customers usually have between 100 and 200, maybe even 500 assets. I have seen it work with as many as 7,000, but it's very slow to run all of the depreciation in a big lump. That's where we would go. Let's do all of our equipment first. Let's do all our building, and let's do our vehicles. So you can do as many as you want. Just know that it's going to take time if you've got 7,000 assets and you have multiple books.
And then I have one last question for you, Gwen. How many depreciation books do you see people using typically?
So typically we would see just one or two. We'd see a posting book. Sometimes I call it book. And then the other one I would see is tax. They might have a third, which would be state tax, but a lot of times now they're using the federal, and it's just federal and your book. So those would be the two that I typically see. And again, it's just depending on how you want performance to be, how many you have, but you can run those separate. Let me go over here and show you the book. If I peel up just the non-posting book, you saw that these accounts, I could calculate it for these. So this would take a while because the current period is you see, it's back in 2020. And I could go back and show you that, but you could do multiple periods, and that's what that would have. And you would want to do depreciate.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Gwen. Diana, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Just thank you everyone for attending. And like Selena said, if you have any questions, please point them my way. If Katarina is your success manager, she can also answer any questions that you have. And thank you, Gwen. This was very informative and very educational. And I know I got value out of it, so I hope everyone else did too.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks,
you for having
everyone.
me.
Yeah, everyone have a great day. And I hope we didn't take up too much of your time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.